we're good to go.
Awesome.
So,
okay.
Hello everyone. This is the St. Louis Angular Meetup. We're here with Kyle Murray from Bullhorn. He's going to give us a little talk on Ionic. So Kyle, go ahead and take it away.
Excellent. Thanks, Josh. Okay, so as he says, this talk is going to be an introduction to Ionic v3. I'm going to just take you through sort of why you might choose the Ionic framework and sort of give you some live coding into how to build an application. Pleasantries. This is me. As Josh said, I'm a UI developer at Bullhorn in Boston. You can follow me on Twitter. To be honest, I don't use it that often, but feel free. It's at MagicAardvark or github.com/MagicAardvark if you want to come and stalk me. Okay, so a small overview of what we're going to be discussing today. So it's native versus hybrid apps. Why you may choose to build hybrid over native. Sort of an overview of how the times have changed through hybrid apps' dark days through to the present. I'll look into the Ionic framework, the CLI, the new Ionic Pro, and a few other things that they also have. We're going to do a live coding demo, a little look into what's next, and then we've got plenty of time at the end for questions. So this is probably a phrase that all of you have muttered at one point or another. You know, I wish I had an app for that, or I want to build an app for that. It's a really common scenario. So what does it take to build a native application, first of all? Unfortunately, it takes a lot. First of all, you have to decide of which platforms would you like to build for. Do you want to support iOS, Android, Windows, BlackBerry if you're really psychotic? But really, you have to make these decisions at the start of what you want to cover. And then you have to then decide, okay, I'm going to do iOS and Android. That's two separate code bases that you need to start up. Two areas of expertise. You need Swift or Android code. It's, you know, they're not really that transferable. There's obviously some elements. There are two separate code bases. So you have to build two of every feature. You have to build fix two of every bug, which is everyone's favorite part of it. Particularly in like an enterprise level like application, and you've got teams working on this can get very, very timely. And then once your app's out and fairly stable, basically, to be honest, it's diminishing returns. You only need iOS developers to sort of maintain that one app. That's going to be a drainer. So hybrid apps. First of all, the hybrid apps we're going to be discussing today, because there is a couple of different versions, is basically HTML5 in a browser in a native layer. Hooks through a web view to the native API, so that's your camera, your contacts, barcode scanners, as we've seen before. This is all in a familiar web dev environment, so this is something that you maybe are working with most of your day if you're a web developer. And more importantly, it's a single code base. Okay, this is one code base that you can deploy and create an APK and an IPA file for Android and iOS. But hybrid apps suck, or at least that was a sentiment that still actually gets thrown around today. And we've got Mr. Mark Zuckerberg to put a lot of blame on his shoulders for this. Facebook made the move to basically build a hybrid app back in sort of 2009, 2010, and a few years of development, obviously, that took, and that was built on the PhoneGap Cordova platform. Now, when this application was built, hybrid apps were still very much in their infancy to basically build a lot of stuff on top of it, fix a lot of issues, and handle a lot of those growing pains. Among that, I do feel that this is kind of an unfair assessment because 99% of people who are building these apps are not Facebook, right? Facebook has billions of users, has a ton of data to display and handle. They need something that is very responsive and works very well at scale. Most of us do not have to go to those levels of scale. So we can take sort of smaller liberties and use hybrid apps a lot more effectively than possibly Facebook even today could do. Okay. The thing is, it's not 2008 anymore. 2008 was the year that PhoneGap came out. the iPhone, for example, is 5 to 6 times as quick if you take relative like processing speed and RAM. The web standards have improved drastically. Anyone that's been developing for a few years might remember the great times of IE6 compatibility, or if you really want to go further back than that, it gets even worse. But then we had the rise of Firefox, and then that became the sort of dominant standard that everyone wanted to use. Then Chrome came out, and then they didn't play nice, and then Firefox went for some random sort of thing to change everything for some reason. But the good news is nowadays, fairly universal. You can use pretty much the same HTML, JavaScript, and CSS cross platforms. Obviously, some type of still alive. The Android itself, for its platform, is now all Chromium based as of 4.4 KitKat. And so it's all Chromium based since then, so it's all one platform. iOS users keep their devices really up to date. Something that's in the metrics here, I mean, this was taken from July 28th this year. iOS 10's got an 87% market. That's adoption. Android looks a little bit more fragmented, but really not that bad. I know the slide's pretty small for maybe seeing here, but basically, Nugget or Nougat, however you want to say it, Marshmallow, Lollipop, and KitKat being the all Chromium browsers have 93% or somewhere around there market share. Like that's astronomical. So these all work really well with the web views such as like Cordova, which Ionic uses as well. We'll get into that in a second. I've got a quick slide here. I actually took this from one of Ionic's blog posts. I thought it really sort of set home how much has changed over this time. So from 2008, we had like the iPhone, the first one with the 3G connectivity and running PhoneGap. It was slow. Obviously, then we got the Facebook debacle in 2012. Since then, we've got like web workers, Evergreen Chrome. So Chrome's a self-updating browser. WK Web Views gave us a lot more faster performance for these wrappers. And then we have a whole bunch of things like service workers and custom elements and things like that we can use. So that's a little bit as to why you may choose to build a hybrid app over a native app. But what about if you actually come to the actual building of them? What the differences lie there? The native SDKs are fantastic, right? The biggest benefit of them is the fact that you can go and start a new project. You can create a template, it's like a tab template, or you have a side menu. They've got all the components built into them, so you don't have to worry about building sliders and buttons and all your page transitions of it. They do that nicely for you. You can extend them and modify them if you wish, but they provide that. And that's one of the biggest sort of benefits to this kind of development is your time to market is drastically reduced by you not having to worry about how will this slider work in different environments. It's been handled for you. And when you compare that to just a plain sort of Cordova or PhoneGap app, it's kind of its engine to power it if you take it, then it gives you basically a very heavily stacked deck in favor of going native. Okay, if you just chose to go with like PhoneGap with the web view, you have to worry about how to do those different versions, how to support it on, KitKat, Lollipop, Marshmallow, and all the different versions. How a user will actually interact with it, and does it give a good experience? So that's where Ionic sort of jumps in here. What Ionic sort of fundamentally is essentially it's a UI components for building mobile apps, right? You can think of it as kind of Bootstrap for building mobile apps. Okay? It's a nice compounded library that also provides a lot more weight than just that. So their mission statement from the kind of get-go was they wanted you to focus on building your app, not on how your app should work. And what they mean by this is they want you to come up with your idea and then know that, okay, I need this component, I need this, I need my app to do this. I don't need to worry about if my user goes to this page, how will it animate in? How will I control it if I have 10 things on this page, but actually I need to move something else in? Like, basically, they take out a lot of the work and they want to make your developer life as easy as possible, so you can focus on building what you want to build rather than worrying about how you're going to build it. So the Ionic components library is all built-in technologies that you know from your web dev. It's HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. It uses Angular 4.13, I think it is just now, in version 3.6 to supercharge your JavaScript, as they've got here. It's also got Sass, so you can use CSS Variables. It makes theming very, very easy. Okay, and so how that all comes together is basically you have your app that's built using Ionic components, which utilize Angular for their logic, served up in a web view. In the current case, it's Cordova, although there are plans to support other platforms, all wrapped up in a native app shell. Okay, so when you add Ionic on top of the Cordova web view, then it sort of brings us up to parity with the native SDKs, which is monumental in terms of how you build it, especially when you consider the fact that I only need to build this once and I can deploy it to iOS, to Android, and Windows. So it really gives you full coverage. Oh, by the way, if anyone's ever known anyone that does any Ionic development and has released a Windows app, I would love to speak to them because I've never met anyone that's done it yet. Okay, when they talk about their the UI components, one of the biggest sort of pluses they have here is what they call their platform continuity, right? So they want to make them feel as native as possible, right? So you could build something that feels close to your device. So by default, and I say by default because I'm going to give you a caveat afterwards, when you build that's one app using sort of like you've got a tabbed layout and then a list with some users. If you load up in an iOS device, it will look like it's a native iOS application. It'll have a kind of iOS-y theme. It'll have iOS transitions. If you do Android, it will have vice versa. It'll have Android look and feel, Android transitions. Now, this is really great for if you want a slightly different look on each platform. To be honest, when you're doing custom things, I don't really know anybody who does that. So what you can do is in your config, in your base component, you can actually specify to say, I only want this to be, for example. And it will use that regardless of if you're on iOS or Android or Windows again. But there's also a flip side to that. If you decided you want your whole app to be Android, but you really like the way that iOS's tabs functions or iOS's page transition, you can use that. That's no problem. So you can sort of mix and match. It gives you kind of the best of both worlds. We have over 900 SVG icons included. You don't need to worry about being a designer to create your icons if you're trying to build something quickly. They've got most of the things covered. And again, these are not things that they've just come up with themselves. These are modeled after the iOS and the material design icons. And the best thing I found about the Ionic framework is actually the documentation. The documentation is honestly some of the best I've found anywhere, and to the point of I actually want to show you as to why it's really good. Like, how often does that happen? Okay, so I open up in this navigation component here, and it gives you a nice little code snippet down the left-hand side. I'm not going to go into the code at the moment. We'll do that when we do the demo. But it also gives you on the right-hand side, you've got a little like sort of fully functional demo. So I can click it, and I get all the page transitions, and I can see exactly what I'm going to do. I can click Android at the top, and I can see that this is how it'll appear on Android. So you see the page transitions are different. Or Windows again, which I just don't understand. It's just hideous. Does anyone have a Windows phone, by the way? No, don't think so. Okay. So in terms of the components that Ionic will actually provide, I'm not going to go through them all, but just to give you a sort of heads up, they cover buttons. They have their own like grid layout framework that you can use. It's really easy. They handle all your forms. These fabs, which I really don't like the name, are really cool. You can get numerous different like transitions as you click on them. So you have like them span from the bottom or span from the top. It's really cool. Modals, loading icons, everything you really want to play, even toasts. So I can have my little toasts appear. So really, you don't have to be a designer to want to go and build something that actually looks nice. You can go and just use the default stuff. Maybe you just change the base color, and you've got a very sort of unique looking app, even with it being material, because everybody wants material. They also have hooks into native functionality. So these are provided by Cordova hooks, but the Ionic team has spent a lot of time going through and gathering up all the most used Cordova plugins, and they provided their own wrappers for them to make them insanely easy to use. So, for example, you can do like fingerprint off. It's as simple as importing the Cordova plugin, doing an install to install the Ionic native wrapper, and then it's really just as simple as importing the module and then using it. And all the documentation is really straightforward. It tells you all the methods that you need to use on it, any options, and it's really cool. And I mean, I'm not going to go through these, but there's literally like almost everything. There's barcode scanners, which we were discussing earlier, access to the clipboard if you're copying, Facebook, Instagram, Google Analytics, there's ad management and stuff like that. So really, everything you're possibly looking for in building an app, chances are they've kind of got it covered. And even if they don't have an Ionic wrapper for it, honestly, it's actually really easy to write your own. If you find another Cordova plugin that you want to use, or even write your own Cordova plugin. I think I've written a grand total of like 2 plugins in my whole time of doing this. It's the ecosystem for Cordova is huge. It's really got everything.
Is they all the plugins are by Ionic itself, or?
So the plugins are Cordova, which is an open source project. It's actually Apache that hosts as open source, and basically their whole goal is to have hooks into native functionality that then are exposed, and then Ionic has hooks to listen to those hooks essentially, and then it surfaces them out. And usually, most of those wrappers are just like converting them to like observables and promises, and just so you can use them a bit nicer with Angular. Okay. Moving slightly away from the UI component library, they also have a really fantastic CLI that's really user-friendly. Now, when you're actually building your application, you want to see it as you're building it, and Ionic's provided several ways in which you can do that. So you can do an Ionic serve. What that will do is spin up a node server, and you can view it in the browser, and you can go and just do it like you're building any other Angular application with your Chrome tools and everything. Your only caveat to that is the fact that you don't have access to most Cordova plugins, because Cordova doesn't exist in the window object. But honestly, I do like 99% of my development just in the browser, and then I finalize with these other ones. But you can do Ionic build. What Ionic build will do is build out your APK or your IPA files for iOS. So you'll do that before you publish them to Play Store or iTunes. You can do Ionic emulate. That will open up, if you're doing Android, it will open up Android Studio's emulator. If you do iOS, it will open up Xcode's simulator. And you can also do live reload in that. So as you make a change in your code, you save it. It has change detection, it will detect it, and it will restart the app again for you. And you have Ionic Run, where you can physically connect your device with a cable to your laptop and have it build and automatically deploy to your device, and you can do your development there. This is really powerful for if you're trying to like diagnose a bug that's only happening on the device. You can actually here used Chrome //inspect. You can then so it shows, because this is a web browser, it shows you basically the dev tools for your phone, and you can go and see your stack trace and everything from there. So that's a really good way of doing bug fixes. They included some really nice generators. So you can do Ionic G or generate. G is just an alias for it. You can do a page, a component, or provider. I'll get into the difference in a minute. And then you just specify the name of who you want, and they will build you a full component with a module for lazy loading with your TS file, HTML, and CSS. Okay. Okay, and it actually does a whole lot more than just that. I'll sort of throw in some pieces as we go throughout the rest of this presentation of what else you can do with it. I just want to do an introduction to brand new, as in literally this month, their new cloud tool suite is Ionic Pro. They have deprecated their previous Ionic cloud, which did include some nice things, but they have such as they had push notifications and off. They have deprecated that. That's fine. They provided some nice sort of pass-ons, like using one signal or Firebase in order to handle those. But this is their new suite that they're using, and they want to focus more on the developers and the testing of Ionic applications. So you can do in the CLI, will upload your project to the your Ionic Pro dashboard, and then it can actually build your APK or your IPM in the cloud, which is really, really good for particularly Windows users, because anyone who's tried to find out how they can use Xcode on a Windows machine finds himself out of luck a lot of times, and you need to have a VPN, virtual machine, sorry. So this sort of alleviates all that. It has Git integrations, so you can have it automatically do a build whenever you push to your master branch, for example. You can do hot deploys. Essentially what this is you can have a listener in your application that when user opens up your app, it checks to see, hey, do I have a version deployed to the dashboard? And then it can download it in either the foreground or the background and install that updated version. This allows you to bypass the Play Stores and iTunes marketplace, basically, to get updates to your app. Now, you can only do this if it changes to HTML, CSS, or JavaScript. You can't do it for anything that involves actually changing the binary itself. For that, you have to do a normal upload. And another application that you can download called Ionic View. And what Ionic View does is it's basically Test Flight or Test Fairy, if you've ever used those, for Ionic. You log in with your credentials for Ionic Pro, and then it will show you the builds that are on your dashboard that you've uploaded, and you can just download them as if it was your own private Play Store. And finally, they've just announced is Ionic Creator is now in beta. Sorry, I'll have a quick drink. So Ionic Creator is kind of developers' worst nightmares in some ways, as they always think. It's basically a builder for apps. You can drag and drop components to build an app. This is it was really popular with the Ionic 1 framework. They've now got it into beta for their Ionic 3 now. I keep wanting to call it Ionic 2, but it's moved on. It's just Ionic. For Ionic 1 is Ionic JS, same as Angular. Okay, so this is really good if you don't quite know how your app's going to look, or you're a little bit shy on the design side of it. You can drag and drop all the stuff, and then you can check out the project and then add any further logic you want. So it's a really powerful tool for prototyping in particular. Some great use for that. And one of Ionic's other core offerings is the fact that out the box, it works as progressive web apps. So this is getting a lot of buzz over the last year, and for very good reasons. It's an app-like experience that works on every device. It's just a browser. Ionic ships with server workers already in there for offline caching. So it gives you a perfect starting place if you're wanting to build a progressive web app as well. So it really bundles all Ionic together to it's one code base that you literally can use everywhere. You can build it for iOS, Android, Windows, progressive web apps, web pages, or if you're crazy like me, you build your slide deck in Ionic. Really, you can use it for everything. This is a sliders component, by the way, if you're ever curious. Okay, so how do you get started with Ionic? That's the big thing that you all want to do. So first of all, it's as simple as obviously having npm install. But it's npm install -e install Ionic in Cordova. This is Ionic CLI and obviously Cordova. And then starting your app is as easy as just doing Ionic start. It's that simple. Demo time. What's the worst that can happen? We're always cursed by demo gods, so it's always good. So I'm going to jump over to my terminal here. Okay. I'm just going to CD back one. So what I'm going to do first is just type in Ionic. Okay. Just to show you just how user-friendly this CLI really is. Okay, so you type in, everything is clearly marked with a description, so you can see, you can pull up the docs straight from the CLI. You log into your Ionic Pro account or whatever, or create a new project. So we want to create a new project, so we'll do Ionic start. There we go. It's always a good start when you can't spell it. Okay. So ask, okay, what would you like to name your project? So I'm going to call mine Demo App. Then it asks you, what sort of template would you like to start with? So it ships with 7 templates out the box. There's tabs, which gives you 3 little tabs on the bottom and sort of 3 pages you can navigate between. There's a blank, which is, as it says, totally empty. Side menu gives you a little hamburger in the top, little slide out menu. It's really nice. Super is sort of like a demo application that you can check out, and it's basically got almost every component in it, all baked in really weirdly. But it's got providers, but it's great for showing you like the best practices and sort of giving you a good idea of how you should go about building a larger application. There's the conference app, which has been ported over from test days. That's been updated to be a full Ionic 2. There's the tutorial app, which goes along with the Ionic framework docs, have a really nice tutorial to get you started, so that'll happen. And also the Amazon team actually built out an AWS starter kit for you. So getting connected to AWS is really, really simple. So we're going to start off with tabs 1. So what it's going to do is it's going to check out that template, and then it's going to install the dependencies. Okay, now while it's doing that, I'm just going to drop this down a little bit, but we're just going to go over sort of a little bit about the folder structure. What was that? There's weird noises in here. Okay, a little bit about the folder structure. So you have your hooks. This is for any Cordova hooks that you're wanting to add. Is where you put your app icon and your splash screen. Now, anyone who's ever built like an app before knows that you actually need like a ton of different resolutions, as you can see here, for your things, and that's a real pain to go and build out all these different resolutions for your splash screens and your icons. So I saw that. So you can replace these 2 files here, the icon and splash. Replace those with what you want, then go to your CLI and type in Ionic resources, and it will actually upload those to their platform, and then create all the images you need and send them back down and save them in the same folder. So they take care of all that for you. There's a source. This is where you're actually going to do all your development. I'll come back to in a second. www is just your build folder. Really much you ever change in there. The rest is pretty normal for like an Angular project, with the exception of config. Config XML, this is the XML file which Cordova will parse in order to build your APKs. So you have your app name here, any descriptions. It also has all your plugins and stuff will also go in here. And you can see these are all the icon references. You update this version here, by the way, for when you're uploading to the store, not the one above it. Okay, so let's look into the source folder. So I'm going to start with these files here. Okay, so we have an index.html. It's pretty self-explanatory. It's just like any other website. It just pulls in our JS files and our polyfills. So the only interesting part is this little service worker here. Just uncomment this code out, and you'll have service workers. Yes. Yes. Sorry. Can make the font bigger. Yeah, I just hit the wrong one there. That better for you? Or you want a little bit more? Okay, give it that. Okay, so yeah, you just uncomment this and instant service workers. Speaking of the service worker, here it is here. It ships with using Google's toolbox for the service worker. So it's really nice and simple, and you can expand it. There's also the manifest JSON. This is what you use for telling your browser to basically use this as a progressive web app. So you specify your name and your splash screen icons and stuff like that in there. Okay, so before I drill into all these, what I'm going to do is actually show you the application first and how we start. Or I would, but it's still installing, so let's wait for that. Okay, so app. In the app folder, this is your root component. So, oh, sorry, I'm going to drop this terminal again. Okay, so it's pretty self-explanatory. Ignore the red underlines as it's still installing. Okay, so the only thing that's different from any other Angular component in here is maybe the imports of platform. So platform.ready basically just lets Ionic know that it's ready to be used for everything else. So basically all your sort of logic would go in after this if you need to add anything in here. App HTML, nothing exciting in there, it's just set your root component. There's the app.module. module. This is your base module where you'll do all your main imports. So again, it should look pretty familiar to anyone who's familiar with Angular. It's just your declarations, your imports, your entry components. For those that want to know how you do like overrides to make everything simple, it's just a config object in here. You would just do like an object, and then you can just do all the things here. It's on the documents. We're not going to do that today because I need to see two different versions for fun. And then you got your providers at the bottom. It's pretty straightforward. App.css, you can add any of your global styles stuff here. Main.ts, it's really just for building. It's not got any purpose. Assets, this is where you put all your fonts or images that you want to import. So they can all live in here. Pages is basically the pages that we're going to use now. I did say that I was going to discuss about pages, the difference between pages and components and providers. Providers is quite self-explanatory, but so pages and components, they're both pages. Sorry, both components, get the right one. The difference is pages is kind of like a view. So whenever it's hard to not say page when you're talking about views. Okay, whenever you have a view, that's a new page component. Okay, and a page component may contain several components, or may just be it itself. I know why this is doing this, Josh, because I forgot to join the VPN, and it's hitting our registry. So let me just kill that and start it again. Sorry. I'm on the wrong network. Let's connect again. Yeah, I was on Visitor before.
If you have NRM installed, you can switch to.
I don't. Come on. I don't even need to get no, cancel that. So let's just make sure I've got browser first.
Or is it demos?
Yes, everybody loves demos. Let's go to good old Yahoo. Okay, Yahoo works. So. It's .co.uk. Obviously, I'm Scottish. I'm sorry. Okay, so we should. Well, I hope it's up in the right folder. It may have been why it wasn't installed. There we go. Apologies for that. Okay, back to this. Okay, so we have 4 pages. About, contact, home, and tabs. I'll show you tabs first just because it's got the least amount of interest in it. So basically what tabs does is it just imports our other pages. It sets them to these variables, so tab 1 root, tab 2 3. And then if we go to the tabs HTML, we have these Ionic components, which are all prefixed with Ion, with the exception of button. I will say that. There's always an exclusion. And then you just specify some Ionic tabs within that, and you can see the root is set to the page in which we're going to do. So that this would be home page, for example, about page, etc. I'm just going to go with theme first, and I'll come back to pages. Within theme, we have our SCSS variables. So this is where you come and do any of the overrides. So if I just jump over to the Ionic documentation and just go back to the main docs. Okay, in the theming, they have overriding Ionic variables, right? So basically, they've kind of thought of almost everything here of what you can configure. So you can change it just for certain platforms. You can reduce padding, and this will change it globally for these properties. Really easy. If you want like your default padding to just be 12 pixels instead of 16, you just change it once there, and it'll change it for your whole application. It's really good. They have the color variables. So we have primary, secondary, danger. But you can edit these as well, and this will obviously change for your whole application. Stops you using CSS colors within your CSS files that are just singly named. Try and use variables wherever possible. Makes life so much easier in the long run. Okay, looks like npm has been fully installed, so it means I can actually show you starting this up. Okay, so in order to do this, I'm going to do Ionic serve, and if you remember that, that's going to spin up a node server and allow us to sort of do our development in the browser. Okay, so it just goes through its build steps. It's doing CSS cleans, transpiling, all the usual goodies. Yes?
Following along, I can connect this app to Ionic dashboard. Question.
Okay, just say no to that. Yeah, so that's asking, do you want to create an account to Ionic Pro? And go there. For those that might not have heard it, we got a little error that says, what was it said? Connecting to Ionic dashboard, I think it was, yes. Okay, so now.
Sorry, is Ionic using its own webpack configuration?
It does, yes.
Okay.
So the Ionic has sub-dependency for Ionic app scripts, and they've made it really easy by wrapping all of the normally slightly complex Webpack stuff to try and make this as easy as possible for developers to get onboarded. If you want to use your own Webpack or even Rollup as well, it's got support for Rollup, so you can use that instead of their defaults. So it makes it highly extensible. So I'm just going to open up the dev tools, and because I like to see it as a mobile app, I don't want to see it as a full page browser. It's not as special. So if we open this up, we see we've got home. I can click about, and I can click contact, and you see they're all nice little pages. So if I go back to the code, let me just bring this terminal back down here. Actually, while I talk about this next step, I'm going to open up another terminal here, and I'm going to show you the emulation as well. So we can do Ionic Cordova. We do need to specify Cordova because it was a change fairly recently because they might be doing some other web views as well. So they just like to be a bit more decorative of what we're doing. We'll do emulate. I want to emulate iOS, and I want to add live reloading. So when I save a change, it will automatically update. I'm going to spin that up in the background. The reason why I'm doing this just now is this takes about 5 minutes to actually get up and running for the first time. Because what it does is it needs to install the iOS platform, and it pulls in a few dependencies and stuff like that it needs in order to build that. So we'll leave that running in the background, and we'll come back to it in a minute. Just kill my variables. Okay, I was on pages. So let's start with the home page component. So in the homepage component, by default, it's fairly bare bones. There shouldn't be anything really abnormal in here. Only thing be nav controller, which I'll discuss in a minute. You have your selector, which is what your component, it goes by when you use it, and your template URL. So within the template, you can see we have some more Ionic components. We've got a header, navbar, title. Basically, what navbar does is in the middle of here is says, hey, when I open up as a subpage, then give me a little like chevron so I can click back. So it handles your navigation for you, takes one less thing for you to have to do. Also has a lot of these little names slipping me. Directives, sorry, don't mind blank there. For handling some easy styling. Like I said, if you update the variables, if I change the padding to 12 pixels, anywhere where I've got this directive, it's going to apply my padding, not the defaults. This there's a lot of these. You can use these for like text center if you want your text and that component to be centered. Margins, paddings, everything. They've kind of give you a lot of little utility functions. It's really good. It means, to be honest, you don't need to live in CSS for very much else. It's great for people who either don't get CSS or don't like it, which I still find quite a few people that are like that. Okay, final one is CSS file, nothing in here. Like I say, you don't really need that much unless you're retheming. So let's actually do some coding now. Let's kind of walk through of the file structure. So let's delete all this, because we don't want it. So first component I'm kind of going to show you is something nice and simple that we probably all will use at some point because everybody loves them. And that's a slider. Okay, so I can do Ionic slides. Okay, and Ionic slides takes in an Ionic slide. I go, hey, I am a slide. Okay, and then we'll just copy them. We'll have a couple more of these. There we go. Got a few more. So if I save that, I quickly jump over to the other terminal. You can see that it detected a change and it's built its reloaded thing and it made mistakes in there. Because I typed in iOS slide for some reason instead of Ion slide. I'm doing well. I've got iOS on the brain here. Okay. You see, all my uploaded. I didn't hit refresh, and now I've got a little slider, so I can slide right through. That's literally all I had to do. No styling, nothing. So I hit the end, but that doesn't really fill my needs. I want mine to loop and go right through. So I can actually come here and I can say loop equals true, and it will loop. I also want mine to loop vertically because there isn't enough vertical sliders in the world, and I feel like they need to be represented more. So we'll save that, jump back across, and say I can't slide vertical, back, oh, sorry, horizontal, I can do vertical, and it loops. It's pretty cool, right? So let's do something a little bit more fun. Let's do something that's actually got a little bit of logic to it. Let's add a button first of all. Now remember I said button was the only one, I think there might be some other stuff, that doesn't have Ion in front. Instead you add it as a directive. Okay. And then, so we've got an Ion button here, and I'll say, click me. Okay, I'll save it. Loads up. It's kind of ugly, right? Let's change some of that. Got some more directive. I can say full. It will give me a nice full width button. What else do I want here? Yeah, let's just go with that. And let's also add a click handler. Okay, because we're going to obviously want this button to do something. We'll do that. I've not actually added a function for that to use, so it's going to error, right? Which is a good thing because that's what I want to do. So when we get an error, we also get a nice little modal pop-up for Ionic. It provides that to us, so it shows us exactly what you see in the console. Now you might think this is a bit pointless in the browser, but makes great sense when you go across to your app, which for some reason, if I click it, because I don't have a console to play with, but now I can get my errors. They're not just obscured in that void of blackness. Okay. So go back here. So let's actually do something with this button now. Let's jump over to the home component. We'll create a function called open. Okay. And in this function, what I want to do is I want it to pop open an alert box. Okay. So let's import the alert controller from Ionic Angular. Pass in the constructor. Alert control. Type alert controller. Okay, let's use it. So this dot alert control create. So we're going to create a new alert box, and now it takes some parameters. So let's just have a look into the interface and see what it takes. So it takes a title, a subtitle, message, a few other things, some buttons. You can also enable the backdrop dismiss. So you get the little like background, you can tap it and it will dismiss it. Okay, so let's use this. Let's give it a title. Woo! And a message of semicolon. Best alert box ever. Okay, now we've created an instance of it. What we need to do now is we need to present it. So just to reiterate, we're going to create an alert controller, send it to the view. Now if I jump over here, I get a webpack. Oh, yeah. Be wary of this. If you happen to be running the emulator and the like Ionic server at the same time, with both run, they tend to conflict each other. I was supposed to kill it after the small demo. So let's just kick off the server again. So 2 seconds. Should pop open. Let's kill this tab because I've already got one. Let's refresh this one. Okay, here we go. So now when I click this, I get an alert box. Okay, can't dismiss it. Okay, let's go put some buttons in. So buttons, I can do complex ones with setting the titles and what behavior I want, but because I'm lazy for this, I'm just going to say okay. And Ionic is very nice to provide these nice little shortcuts for commonly used ones. So like OK, dismiss, cancel will actually give you functionality straight out of the box for it. And you see I've now got a little OK here. It's pretty cool. Okay, so let's have a go at doing some new pages, because everybody's app wants more than just this. So let's have this terminal here. I'm just going to clear this out. Let's use the generator to create a new page. So it's Ionic G, or I can write generate if I'm really keen for it. Page, and I'm just going to call it subpage. And then, so you can see it's generated a page named subpage. I go here, I've got sub. And you can see, should drop this, we have sub-ts has a decorative Ionic page. Anything created through the generator is going to have these because Ionic want you to lazy load them by default, which is a fantastic idea and everybody should be doing it. Your module here to import, but for this case of this component, I'm not going to, because I want to show you how to do it without lazy loading should you ever care to do that. So if we go to the app module, copy this down, because we know we have a component called subpage. Okay, and it's going to be imported from pages sub. Okay, then we add it to our declarations. And we add it to our entry components. Okay, because it's going to be used at the start. So we've now created a page and added it to our module. So let's actually use it now. So I finished with the home page. Our slider's good enough. Let's go to the about page. Let's add another button in here. Okay. Ion button. And this time, let's give it an outline. So I don't want a fully colored one. I just want it to be an outline. I want a different color. So remember those variables? Okay. So we had secondary was on it. Let's give it secondary. And I also want it to be a pretty big button because this is the main focus of what I want. Let's say open page. Okay, so if we jump back to our store code, we click the about, and you see I've got open page, and for some reason I decided to make that a method. Just wait for it to reload. There we go. So you can see it's a larger button, just an outline. Still doesn't do anything. So let's actually add some logic in here. So I can do is, because I didn't lazy load this one, well, it's a slightly different syntax for opening the pages, but I'll mention that in a minute. Let's import the subpage from the back one level and then go sub/sub. Okay. We need a method called open. Right. No, I didn't actually add a click handler yet. That'll be why I didn't throw the error. Okay. We now have a method called open when we click it. Right here. Right, to open a page is really, really simple. It's this.nav control dot push. Okay, and then all we do is just pass an instance of the component into it for the page, and that will do it. Now, a little bit about how Ionic's navigation works. It is modeled after how native apps do it. So it's a push-pop system. Literally, you can imagine it's as simple as it's an array of pages. You push new pages on the top, that's what you're currently seeing. You pop them back off, you get what was below it. It's that simple. Okay, so if I save that, I jump across to my demo again, click that, I click open page, it's popped open a page. And then, like I said, I've got this back arrow because it's got the Ion nav bar in the header. So it's really as simple as that to open a new page. But quite often you want to pass things through. So how do I pass parameters through? So again, it's really easy. Pass in an object. I'm going to pass in a message. I'm just going to say I got passed through. All my messages are really descriptive of exactly what they do, by the way, in case you haven't noticed. Okay, now we need to handle this in the subpage because it needs to know. So if I jump over to the subpage, you can see the generator's already included this nav params. Now this is what you use to get the parameters that you pass through. So we'll create a nice little variable called message string. And then we'll do this.message equals this.nav params .get, and then just the key that you want to get. Okay, so if I save that, and then obviously we want to see that, so let's go over here and just do message. Okay, fill about, open the page, just go past it. Simple as that. Okay, so how about using components, right? Because everybody, a nice modular architecture that they can sort of expand on and build really nice large apps. So again, let's just clear this out. So to do a component, I can do Ionic G component. And I'm going to create a list component. My component's just going to be called that. Just generate a new component. Now you see we've got a new folder here called components. We open that up. Ionic has already provided us a components module to encourage lazy loading, like I said. And here's my list component. And I should just drop this. And you see it looks much the same as the page one, minus the Ionic page decorator at the top. And so what we need to do now is we need to import the components module to the base class. So let's import because I'm really bad at fat fingering things, I'm using autocomplete. Okay, so we import our components module and we just add that to the imports. And that will be included. Okay, so now let's go to our list, which I've now lost. Here it is here. So currently it's going to display this variable text, and that's set to hello world. So let's use it. We've got selector, which is list. Let's go to our about page again. And in our about page, lower button, just use list. Back out here, about, you see hello world. It's pretty cool. Only thing is, I didn't want to put it in here. I want to put it in my sub page. If you really don't believe me, it doesn't work. Take it. Still works. Okay, so let's actually make this list component a list. So go over here, I'll just delete this, and we'll do an Ionic list. Take an ion item, and let's have a kind of list of users or something like that. Right? So I could start typing it. Okay, I'm not going to do that because remember this uses Angular, so we can just do ng4. Thank you. I like commentary. It's good. I like when people code along with me. So the user of users. Okay, and then we'll just display user.name, which is slash not a dot. Okay. Okay, I don't know why this is underlining, but let me find out. Okay, go to our list component and let's create this object. Okay. So users. Let's create type array any. Display users. Let's just make a few people in here. Get included. There we go. Let's include a few people, save it. Got an error. Oh, yes, I've got an error. So this is an interesting error that you may see if you start doing this. It's a bit small here. So ion item is not a known element. The reason why that is the fact that we didn't actually include Ionic as an import in our components module. So you don't. It doesn't always bundle the Ionic components in with your modules because not all your modules are going to use Ionic components. So it's just a case of importing that. So import Ionic module. There we go. Thank you, editor. Okay, so Ionic module is imported here, and then we add it to the imports. And we save. And if we open up, we've now got a list. So let's start. Okay, I suppose they're not really that cool though. So let's say this was a list of people in my phone book for some reason. Notice this app does not have a narrative of being something. It's just a list of funny little components because I feel that's a better way of teaching you. Okay, so let's go to our list, and instead of just using this, let's say, does anyone use like Gmail? You know, it's really cool when you like swipe your message and it like gives you extra options and doing that. Let's do that. So I can do ion item sliding. Okay. And then I will just pop this up here. And we're going to iterate the sliding component rather than basic item. Okay. Now, still won't do anything until we do ion item options. Okay, and in here we've got a button. Okay, doesn't really need to do anything. And let's use some of those icons because we've never used any of those. So ion icon, it's got a name. No, actually, let's do text because this is a calling app, right? Just do that. And a little label text. Okay, and let's have another one of those. This time we'll have call and call. Save that. To my app, open the web page, open my sub page, and now I can slide, and I've got text and call. It's pretty awesome, right? I don't like the fact that they're all one color. So now you've already seen this, but these must. Let's have this one be danger, because no one likes texting anymore. At least I don't. Let's have this one as actually, let's have it secondary. We've got a lovely red and green color pattern, so I really apologize to any colorblind people. And that was supposed to go on the button. I just realized I added it to text, but it doesn't matter. Let's move on. Okay, so the data that we're actually using to populate this, we just define it here, but it's probably not where it's going to come from. It's going to come from a service, right? In order to use a service, we create a provider. So let's do Ionic G provider, and it's just going to be called my service because I'm lacking imagination. Like that, it's now created a new folder called providers, just down here. Okay, and you see my service. My service, it's an injectable class, and that's basically all there is to it. There's not really a lot else. It gives you the HTTP module by default. So let's add that to our module. Ionic has already done it for us to the provider. However, what they didn't do for us, which has tripped me up several times, is it did not import the HTTP module. So, and it gives you a little funky error. You're Googling to figure out what happened. HTTP module, I believe it is. Could have just removed it, but obviously this is something that you may trip up on. So, see, correct, yeah.
Can show the error.
I can show you there. Yeah, sure. Just wait for this to build. Okay, I've not used it. I can't yet because I've not used it. Thank you, Josh. Set up for failure there. I'll keep going and I'll come back to this and I'll show you how to actually use it. So let's go to our sub page. It's not a sub page. Sorry, it's the list component we're going to be using. Okay, so let's take this away. Okay, just so we got an empty array here, and let's create an actual service we're going to use. So back to providers, my service, and let's just do a get. Now I'm going to be again slightly lazy here, but I'm just going to return the array. Normally you can wrap this in a promise or whatever to mock it, but you all know what that looks like anyway. So we're here, we import the module, or the component, should I say, from providers / my service. So import my service provider. ID is messing with me today. I don't like this all completely. Whatever plugin I've recently installed that does that, it's really driving me nuts. Does it not like that? Oh, it's the last line. I don't know why. Okay, and then we'll change that. Actually, because of the limiting rules, I'm just going to go to that. Okay. Service. Pick my service provider, and then instead of an empty array, it's this dot service dot get. Okay, so let's save that. Come back to here. Okay, so error, just like we expected. Actually, for some reason, I've got no provider for HTTP here. There was something else that obscures the error before. I can't remember what it was. So forget I said that it was obscured. Let's go to the app module. Let's import this. Okay, and again, you just add it to the imports used. Slow build there for some reason. Okay, let's go to About, Open Page, and you can see we've got our list back. It works, and it's still slideable. which is awesome. Okay, so from that, quick demo, we looked into using components that require real logic. Okay, we looked into using controllers. Control, the modal controllers, they all work basically the same. The page navigation, so it works on a push-pop system. How to pass parameters, how to import components, and basically providers as well, and get your app sort of all up and running. So hopefully that gave you enough coverage to go and actually build an app of your own. Honestly, the best way to learn is to play with it. It's really not as scary as you possibly think. There's quite a lot of really good guides out there. If I actually jump back to my slide deck. So you can, how to get started with it. So you can go have a look on the ionicframework.com. Again, docs are fantastic. They have a getting started walkthrough where it uses that tutorial before. There's the forums for the website. The Slack group is fantastic. I'm in that quite a lot. So if you look for me, I'm Magic Aardvark, the same as everywhere else. And then when you really get fun on this, you can come and start contributing to the project because it is all open source. Okay. Now, I want to take a little sidestep away from Ionic for a minute. Anyone know what this is? Didn't think so. It's okay. So this is a new project that the Ionic team has been working with that I just wanted to give a little preview into. It's called Stencil. Okay, and what Stencil.js is, it's not another framework. Okay, it's a compiler for web components. So basically, what it does, they've looked at a lot of different frameworks like React and Angular and stuff like that. And so, taken a few of the good bits and I don't want to say framework because it's not a framework, but basically they're like a way of compiling that code down to vanilla JavaScript web components. So it uses TSX files, which are just JSX files with TypeScript. Okay, so anyone who's done any React development will be very familiar with how they look. Okay, but why is it so good and why should you really care? Why am I bringing it up at an Ionic meetup? Well, it's because, well, it's vanilla Java. I'm getting ahead of myself there for a second. It's vanilla JavaScript, no dependencies. It has efficient one-way data binding, an asynchronous rendering pipeline, really similar to React Fiber, if anyone's been following that project at all. I can show a little demo to show you sort of what we're talking about there. It works with any framework, or if you're really sort of hardcore in it, no framework at all. So again, why should you care? Well, Ionic v4 is going to utilize Stencil. This is not going to change any of the stuff that I've just shown you today. You'll still do that in the same way, but behind the scenes, that code will be compiled down to use vanilla web components within it using Stencil. But what does this really mean for Ionic v4? Well, it means that because it's essentially no dependencies, you can use this components library with Angular, with React, with Vue, whatever framework you want. So really makes it highly extensible. Okay, I will jump quickly across to the Stencil website just because they have a nice little example and it just kind of duplicate effort. But basically, how simple it is, I'm going to enlarge this. So you can see just how simple this component is. Like this is almost all of the thing. It's a really small API. It's just a component decorator like you see in Angular. They use tag instead of selector. The reason being that selectors can, in the sort of general sense of the term, can be you can select CSS classes and stuff like that. Tags are strictly tags. So that was the reason for having a little rename there. And then you have properties which you can pass in. So this is kind of like your inputs, if you're familiar with the input directive. And then a renderer which uses TSX. Right? These are TSX files. So this is really similar if you've done a React development. So really, when it came down like this small component, it's as simple as using my first component, passing in a name. Really, really dead simple. Like I say, the actual API is really small. Like all the decorators, they actually have a list on here. They do not. Okay, I'll bypass that just now. Literally, there's only like 6 or 7 decorators that are really self-explanatory and really easy. So I'm going to quickly go to the demos just to show you this this fiber demo. Okay. So I'm quickly going to go to the React one just to show you what it actually is. So React has performance issues at a very large scale, so that's what led to this new fiber project that they've been working on. So by default, this is React with like, I think it's about 700 nodes updating every second, right? It's kind of sluggish and a bit jerky. Okay, if I open up the fiber one, you see it's a lot smoother and a lot, better than I. Now, if this is not coming through the video, I do kind of understand because video capturing as it is, but this is really smooth. So to the Stencil version of it, this is using Stencil components. It's ridiculously smooth as well. It's really performant because it is vanilla.js. There is no dependencies. So I want to give you a little insight into that because I do think it's something that is going to be talked about quite a lot, possibly in the next few months. And we'll see where it goes from there. Okay, so again, that was me. I was Kyle Murray from Bullhorn. Stalker links and everything like that. Any questions? Yes?
2 questions. One, you said Ionic is open source. Does that include all versions of Ionic Pro?
Yeah, so Ionic Pro is all free as well. The actual, like their build tools and stuff, I couldn't tell you if they're all open source for Pro, but like let me just actually take you to their GitHub and it'll show you just how much they actually do. So this is the GitHub. So like this is all, like I say, it's all open source. This is CLI, the websites. Here's all these Stencil things that they're working on. The Ionic native wrappers are all in there. App scripts. So this is the wrapper for like the Webpack config and stuff like that we mentioned is on there. Stencil uses a router very similar to React's router, in case you're interested in that. But yeah, like you can see, there's everything here. There's even like unit testing examples and stuff like that in here as well. This one particularly uses Jasmine. I think they're going to upgrade to Jest soon, but we'll find out. But yeah, like I mean, it's 7 pages of open source repos for you to play with.
My other question, are there any parts of the ecosystem that don't play well?
Any parts that don't play well with Ionic?
I mean, like, you didn't show inter-component communication, but I assume...
Yeah. Oh, actually, yeah. So
like, NGRX combined with Ionic.
Yeah, I mean, you can use like RxJS and stuff like that with it, no problem. Literally, it's just Angular, so there's very little that Ionic actually wraps over the top. Anything they do put over the top is actually more utility functions. So you mentioned events, right? Events is actually a rather interesting one. So normally, like you have like inputs and output events. Ionic actually has a slightly different way. So you can do it that way if you like, but they wanted to make it slightly easier for people to onboard. And sorry, I should have went to the API doc instead of components there. And basically, they have kind of a global event fire where it's key driven. So you just have list of events to publish, and you provide a key. Then anywhere in your application, you can have a subscriber, and it will pick it up on it. Really simple for doing like sort of global communication. If you want like direct, like passing through like parameters and stuff, it's all exactly the same as regular Angular. Any other questions? Yes.
Is it? I mean, I know you have access to like similar bugs and whatnot, but is it possible you have access to like sensors?
Access to sensors. Which sensor?
Like an accelerometer.
Yes. So see how excited I was there. So again, yeah, go native. If you scroll through, I bet you it's like called like gyroscope or something. Yeah, there's gyroscope right there. So you import the gyroscope orientation, and you just get the current, or you can watch it. It's as simple as that. Like there's tons of people making games and stuff like that in this. You can build everything. Someone made Pokemon Go in it, which I thought was pretty cool. Any others?
Automatically also handles this vertical and horizontal.
Yeah, does that. So let me jump. But way too many tabs open here. Where's my application? Here. So I'm just trying. Here you go. Yep. There you go. So I'll automatically handle that. Oh, I did forget to show you something. Let me show you something really cool as a tidbit. If I open up my terminal and I kill my current Ionic server, if I do Ionic serve --lab, right? It's a cool little demo thing. I've never used this to actually do real development, but it's a cool little showcase. Spin up. There we go. Okay, and then we can add some platforms. Let's add Android and Windows as platforms. And you see, this is how my app looks on the native platforms. There, and you see 3 different levels. See what I mean by Windows is just atrociously bad. Like, I'm sorry to Windows users if anyone's watching with us, but it's I just don't understand. You see how the pages transitions are all. Oops, let's do that again. They're all slightly different. Again, the slides. So yeah, it's a good way of playing how it would look cross-browser, cross-platform. Sorry.
Well, there's an update to Cordova.
Sorry.
If there's an update to Cordova,
yep.
Just an npm update.
Yeah, exactly. If you need any updates to Cordova or anything, the Ionic CLI is actually both annoying and really cool in the way that the moment it has an update, the next command you run, it will say, hey, there's actually an update for this. And it will pull in Cordova dependencies as well. Like I said, they really have put a huge focus into making this as user-friendly as possible. Like, I know quite a few people on the Slack channels and stuff. Like, there's guys kind of that are not developers at all and able to put together some pretty cool little stuff.
So I saw when you did the emulator for iOS and,
yes.
And Android, you're using Mac. So if you're using Windows or PC, can you use an iOS?
No, not unless you use a box, like a virtual box.
Okay.
So there are some paid services, and the name's escaping me right now, to do those. But like I said, that's one way where Ionic Pro and them doing the builds for you in the cloud. To be honest, that's the only time I feel that you really use them. I honestly never use the emulator. I either run it directly on my device or I use the browser for most things.
Any other questions?
How do you use this Ionic both for mobile apps as well as the responsive design?
For desktops and stuff like that? Yeah, so do you mean in terms of like the layouts?
No, for general purpose, like people can use it on laptops.
Yes, yeah. So I'll just read the questions, right? So how do users use it for like a web page rather than just this native app? It's honestly as simple as if I just go in my code. See this www build folder? I take that, I press copy, I drop it on my server, and it'll work. And they say if you want service workers and stuff, you just uncomment this piece of code, and you'll have instant service workers. By the way, if you're ever using service workers and you've got live reload on, it will bug you a lot because it will cache stuff, and you'll be like, why are my changes not updating? So turn it off when you're doing development.
Any other questions? All right. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank
for
you.
The great talk on Ionic.